This week, the United States continued its intense bombardment of the Houthis in Yemen, escalating attacks that began under the previous administration. After 10 years of civil war between the Iran-allied Houthis and government forces backed by the West and Saudi Arabia, the fighting in the country has reached a stalemate. The Houthis, however, have been disrupting maritime routes in the Red Sea since November of 2023 in response to Israel's war on Gaza. So what effect will the US's renewed bombing campaign have on Yemen? Joining me to discuss this are from Sana, Hussein al-Bukaiti, a political analyst and commentator. And here in Washington, D.C., Fatima Al-Asra, a senior analyst at the Washington Center for Yemeni Studies. Welcome to UpFront, both of you. Fatima, let me start with you. President Biden carried out attacks on Houthi targets. And now, under President Trump, we have seen one of the US's largest bombing campaigns against Yemen in years. You support this action by the United States, by President Trump. And we understand that for the first time, this campaign is targeting Houthi leadership. Why this escalation now, and how does this campaign differ from previous ones?
We've tried diplomacy in Yemen with the Houthi rebels. And for 10 years, we haven't been able to move to a solution that can bring stability to the country. Of course, what we're seeing right now in terms of the intervention, it is, definitely at a larger scale than it has been done before. And we know very well that it's not necessarily coming there to save Yemeni people from the situation that it is, because it's an intervention for Red Sea security, for Israel. But at the same time, many Yemenis, despite that realization, see it as important, if not even imperative, because it can help shake the foundations of the Houthis again in order for them to remove their grip on the northern parts of the country.
Hussein, I'd like your response here. I mean, you have sympathies for the Houthis. I'd like to ask you, can they really defend themselves against the United States?
Of course they can. And all those strikes that the United States have done, actually, they haven't affected any of the capability of Yemeni army here in Sana'a. And as well, regarding to Sister Fatima, when she said that they have tried 10 years of diplomacy with what she called them the Houthis. Is this 10 years of diplomacy? Is more than 300,000 airstrike by the Saudi-led coalition? Is this diplomacy by killing 18,000 Yemeni civilians, most of them women and children, by direct airstrike? And around 3,000 Yemeni civilians have died from preventable diseases like cholera and malaria, and as well starvation and malnutrition. This is not actually diplomacy. And as well, we've seen in the south what's happening with the United Arab Emirates.
Let's bring you in here, Fatima. Let's just talk about the US airstrikes. In fact, it is the Yemen's health ministry that has reported dozens of civilians killed in the airstrikes, women and children. Trump says, of course, that the attacks are to protect global trade routes. But how does that justify killing civilians?
Violence at this scale is not something that I would get behind. Airstrikes is not something I would get behind. And I think that the strategic mistake that the Trump administration is making is not looking at the Houthi threat comprehensively. It's great that President Trump can acknowledge how much Yemeni people despise the Houthis because of the violations that they have, but the messaging hasn't been great.
But it's not just about messaging, isn't it? Because earlier you said that there may be geopolitical interest from the Trump administration, but these airstrikes may ultimately solve a civil or a domestic issue.
Yeah.
So it sounds like a contradiction then, because if the casualties of this intervention are Yemenis themselves, then how can it be a welcomed intervention?
So the airstrikes that have been conducted so far, we've seen them conducted on Houthi installations and weapons depots. And that has helped the local resistance in these places gain momentum against the Houthis that have been blowing up the residential homes. The Houthis don't get to call any kind of moral rights when they are imprisoning people, starving the people, and really putting, I mean, there's a siege in Taz. They put people in chokehold on Taz. And they're the ones who are blowing up the homes of people in Rada', in Al-Bayda. So opposition is met with brutality, absolute brutality. And that's the chaos that the militia thrives upon.
Okay, Hussein, Fatima has a point here, right? I mean, it is Human Rights Watch that has laid the blame at all the parties who are involved in this conflict. But they have said that the Houthis have indeed committed human rights violations, which include arbitrary arrests, torture, forced disappearances, that they've arrested dozens of UN workers. This is a specific accusation against the Houthis themselves. And Human Rights Watch actually said that the Houthis' recent attacks on civilian homes may amount to war crimes. How can the Houthis then justify these actions? They're also implicated.
I mean, me personally, I cannot justify any violation, and of course, there could be some kind of violation here in Sana'a. No one can be 100% perfect. We've seen as well in the United States, in most countries, who they claim that they are the free countries. There is some violation. No one can be 100% perfect. But you should see who's actually now killing Yemeni civilians, who's actually now trying to close the port of Hodeidah, which is the main line for Yemeni humanitarian and food and fuel to enter the country. Is Trump. They are now trying to block and to close the Hodeidah port exactly as the Saudi did. And the main reason of that, they won't use food and medicine and fuel as a weapon, exactly as the Zionist state is doing in Gaza. I want to just speak about Yemeni action at this point. It was only against the Israeli regime. We've seen what's happening in Palestine. I mean, if we cannot stand for Palestine, we should not expect that someone will stand for the Yemenis. Of course, that this might bring war against Yemen, but I don't think it's like it's our moral value for humanity. We should stand with the Palestinians. Just imagine, more than 50,000 civilians has been killed. More than 150 has been injured, and entire cities has been flattened. And what Yemen is doing is exactly what the United Nations has asked. The Oxfam, Amnesty International, they all has asked the Israeli to stop their attack. There is a warrant to arrest Netanyahu. So I can say that Yemen, actually, they are implementing this warrant, and they are forming blockade against Israeli until they stop the genocide.
Okay, Fatima, we've seen the horror in Gaza, okay? Countries have stood by, that is the truth. Countries have stood by while Israel has killed more than 50,000 people. The West has been complicit in this genocide. And of course, the Houthis, as we've just said, say their actions in the Red Sea are stemming from, and I quote, religious, humanitarian, and moral responsibility toward the oppressed people of Palestine. Now, there's been a lot of support, some support, for the Houthis taking action against Israel because of the inaction of other countries. Does he have a point?
What comes to my mind right now is 1,986. That's the number of women in Houthi jails that are imprisoned for charges like prostitution, and most of these women worked in nonprofit organizations. That comes to my mind. And it comes to my mind the people who haven't seen their families for a decade because they are not even, they didn't even speak against the Houthis. They just are from different political affiliations. Thousands of them in jail, thousands tortured. I can't hear about Gaza from somebody like him and from a group like him. They are not, they're exploiting Gaza. It has nothing to do, I mean, who asked you to interfere on behalf of, the silent Arab nations? Are you coordinating with a legitimate Palestinian authority in terms of doing and conducting? The only authority you're coordinating with is the Iranian regime. The Islamic Republic stands to gain from this chaos. Yemen is caught in a geopolitical game. Israel attacked Yemen. This
But it's Israel killing thousands of people in Gaza,
yeah,
right?
But I understand, and I don't want to see that happen. I don't support that violence. I don't support the violence that happened in October 7th. I don't support the violence that the Houthis... Violence, full stop, is abhorrent. And it's a language that is spoken by the Houthis. It's the only language that they speak. But it's not, you know, this is the problem. It's not coming from I don't think it's coming from a place where they're sympathizing with the Palestinian as much as it's coming from an anti-Semitic place. And, you know, this religion, Islamic religion, is peaceful. It should not preach, it preaches coexistence. And we've been talking about this for over 2 decades, since September 11, trying to correct misconceptions about Islam and about our religion and how peaceful it is, only for it to be co-opted by groups like the Houthis, who chant death to America, death to Israel, curse on the Jews. It is reprehensible. It's another religion. You don't have to endorse it. You don't have to be Jewish. But you don't have to be anti-Semitic in that way.
Okay, let's hear from that. Hussein, what is your response to all of that?
I mean, I've seen her, she spoke about October 7 and about what she said the Houthi is doing in Yemen, and she avoided to speak about what the Zionist state of Israel has done, what the crimes has been committed by Israel, and those tens of thousands of civilians, mostly women and children. She cannot condemn that, and I don't blame her because she will.
I will not discuss that with you. I will discuss that at another forum, but not with someone who's going to talk about Yemen. You have nothing. Okay.
Then why you speak to me about October 7th? But let me finish. I mean, I don't blame you, because now anyone who have actually condemned Israeli attack or the genocide or the killing, they will say he's anti-Semitic, and I don't know, even the United States, that they might put anyone in jail or deport him. This is the U.S. That everybody think is a free country. But like I said, and I dare you to condemn those genocide, or to call those killing as you condemn what Hamas did, or as you condemn what Yemeni did. Of course, you said you are not going to say this to me, but you are not going to say this to anyone, because you can't do that, especially under the Trump administration.
Okay. We're running out of time, Hussein.
Today it was about Gaza. Let me finish. I just want to say that when Yemeni has took a stand to attack Israel, and as well now to attack America, because they are the one who started attacking Yemen, is because they start this war to stop the Gaza genocide, and they are not gonna get into this war if they are not ready for it. They expect that the United States will launch a war. They expect even the United States will resume the so-called Saudi coalition, and might as well start a ground attack on Yemen. And
okay, we have to wrap it. We have to leave it there. Fatima and Hussein, thank you very much for joining us here on UpFront. That's our show for this week. UpFront will be back next week.